Ben Torres adjusted his uniform and checked the time on his wrist display. Another day at Harmony Point was about to begin, and he could already see the morning shift of diplomats and traders moving through the corridors of the massive space station. As a cultural attaché for the Human Colonial Authority, Ben spent his days helping different alien species understand human customs and traditions. It was not always easy work, but he found it rewarding. Harmony Point orbited a neutral star system far from any single species' territory. The station served as a meeting place where dozens of different civilizations could conduct business, negotiate treaties, and exchange knowledge. Ben had been working here for 3 years, and he still marveled at the diversity of life forms that passed through the station's halls. The station itself was enormous, with sections designed to accommodate the needs of various species. There were high-gravity areas for the rock-like granite people, underwater chambers for the aquatic tide swimmers, and crystalline gardens for the light-based Vithani. Ben's office was in the human section, which was designed to feel comfortable and familiar to visitors from Earth's colonies. Ben walked through the main corridor toward his office, nodding to familiar faces along the way. He passed a group of feathered ones discussing trade routes in their musical language, and a pair of metal workers examining some kind of technological device with their multiple arms. The diversity never stopped amazing him. When Ben reached his office, his assistant Dr. Maya Okafor was already there, reviewing files on her tablet. Maya was a xenobiologist who helped Ben understand the biological and cultural needs of different species. She had short, curly hair and wore the practical clothing favored by scientists throughout human space. "Good morning, Ben," Maya said without looking up from her tablet. "We have an interesting day ahead of us." "What do you mean?" Ben asked as he settled into his chair. Maya finally looked up, and Ben could see excitement in her eyes. "Queen Zara of the Vithani Empire requested a private meeting with you today. Not a formal diplomatic session, just a personal conversation." Ben felt his eyebrows rise in surprise. The Vithani were one of the most powerful and ancient civilizations in the galaxy. They were crystalline beings who lived for thousands of years and made decisions through a form of collective consciousness. Queen Zara herself was over 2,000 years old and ruled an empire that spanned dozens of star systems. "That is unusual," Ben said. "The Vithani usually handle everything through formal channels." "Did she say what she wanted to discuss?" "No details," Maya replied. "Just that she wanted to speak with our cultural expert about human society. The meeting is scheduled for this afternoon in Conference Room 7. Ben spent the morning reviewing everything he knew about Vithani culture. They were beings made of living crystal that could change color and shape to some degree. They communicated through patterns of light that flickered across their surfaces, though they had learned to speak human languages for diplomatic purposes. The Vithani valued order, long-term planning, and collective decision-making. They found human behavior confusing, because humans made quick individual decisions and seemed to act on emotion rather than careful logic. Conference Room 7 was one of the neutral meeting spaces designed to accommodate multiple species. The lighting could be adjusted for different visual needs, and the furniture could be reconfigured for various body types. When Ben arrived, Queen Zara was already there, standing near the large window that looked out into space. Queen Zara was impressive to behold. She stood about 2 meters tall, with a humanoid shape made of translucent blue crystal. Patterns of light moved constantly across her surface, creating beautiful displays that Ben knew represented her thoughts and emotions. When she turned to greet him, her crystal face somehow managed to convey a sense of curiosity and intelligence. "Cultural attaché Torres," Queen Zara said in perfect English, though her voice had a musical quality that came from vibrations in her crystal structure. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." "It is an honor, Your Majesty," Ben replied, giving a respectful bow. "How may I assist you today?" Queen Zara moved closer, and Ben could see the light patterns on her surface shifting to what he recognized as contemplative colors. "I have a question that may seem strange coming from someone of my position and experience. Please ask anything you wish." The Queen paused for a moment, and the lights on her surface dimmed slightly. "Can you show me how humans live?" Ben blinked in surprise. "I am sorry, Your Majesty, but I am not sure I understand the question." Queen Zara turned back toward the window, gazing out at the stars. "My people have observed humanity for over a century. We have conducted trade, signed treaties, and maintained peaceful relations. But there is something about your species that we cannot comprehend. What is that? Ben asked. You live such brief lives, Queen Zara said. A human lifetime is barely a moment compared to ours. You make decisions as individuals rather than consulting with your entire species. You act on emotion and instinct rather than careful analysis. By all logic, such an approach should lead to chaos and failure. Ben waited for her to continue, sensing that she was building toward something important. Yet humans accomplish remarkable things, Queen Zara continued. You explore new worlds with enthusiasm. You create art and music that moves even other species. You form bonds of friendship and love that inspire great sacrifices. You adapt to new situations faster than any species we have encountered. How is this possible? Ben began to understand what the Queen was asking. You want to understand how human society actually works, not just the formal diplomatic version you see in meetings. Exactly, Queen Zara said, turning back to face him. The light patterns on her surface brightened with what Ben recognized as excitement. We see the results of human activity, but we do not understand the process. How do you make decisions so quickly? How do you coordinate actions without collective consciousness? How do you find meaning in such short lives? Ben thought carefully about how to respond. This was clearly important to the Queen, and he wanted to give her a helpful answer. Your Majesty, human society is indeed very different from Vithani culture, Ben said. Perhaps the best way to understand it would be to observe it directly. Would you like me to show you around the human sections of Harmony Point? Queen Zara's surface flickered with bright colors that Ben interpreted as enthusiasm. Yes, that would be most helpful. Ben led Queen Zara out of the conference room and toward the human residential areas of the station. As they walked, he tried to think of the best way to explain human behavior to someone whose species thought in completely different terms. Their first stop was the main cafeteria in the human section. It was lunchtime, and the large room was filled with people eating, talking, and relaxing. Ben and Queen Zara found a table where they could observe without disturbing anyone. This is where humans gather to eat and socialize, Ben explained. Notice how they form small groups based on friendship, work relationships, or shared interests. Queen Zara studied the scene carefully. Ben could see her light patterns shifting as she processed what she was seeing. At one table, a group of engineers was having an animated discussion about some technical problem. At another, a family with young children was trying to keep the kids from making too much mess while they ate. Near the window, an elderly couple sat quietly together, occasionally sharing comments about the view of space outside. They seemed to be engaging in multiple activities simultaneously, Queen Zara observed. Eating, communicating, caring for offspring, and processing information all at the same time. That is a good observation, Ben said. Humans are very good at multitasking. We can handle several different things at once, even if we are not always perfectly efficient at any single task. They watched as a woman at a nearby table answered a communication device while continuing to eat her lunch and listened to her companion's story about his morning. She managed to handle all three activities without seeming stressed or confused. Among my people, we would focus completely on one task until it was finished before moving to the next, Queen Zara said. This approach seems chaotic, yet it appears to work. Humans have learned to adapt to constant change and multiple demands, Ben explained. Our short lives mean we cannot afford to do everything in sequence. We have to overlap activities and make quick decisions based on incomplete information. Their next stop was the recreation area, where humans engaged in various leisure activities. Some were playing games, others were reading or watching entertainment programs, and a few were working on personal projects or hobbies. Queen Zara was particularly fascinated by a group of children who were playing an elaborate pretend game. They had created an imaginary world where they were explorers on an alien planet, and they were acting out adventures with great enthusiasm and creativity. What purpose does this activity serve? Queen Zara asked. Play is how human children learn about the world, Ben explained. They practice social skills, explore different roles, and develop their imagination. Even adult humans continue to play games and engage in creative activities for enjoyment and mental stimulation. But they are not learning factual information, Queen Zara pointed out. They are creating fictional scenarios that have no basis in reality. That is true, Ben agreed. But the process of imagination and creativity is very important for humans. It helps us think of new solutions to problems and envision possibilities that do not yet exist. Many human innovations started as someone's imaginative idea. They watched as the children's game evolved and changed. One child suggested they were now underwater explorers, and the others immediately adapted their play to fit this new scenario. Within minutes, they had created an entirely different adventure with new rules and challenges. They adapt their activity instantly based on new input, Queen Zara observed. There was no lengthy discussion or formal decision-making process. Humans are very good at improvisation, Ben said. We can change our plans quickly when circumstances change. This flexibility has helped us survive and thrive in many different environments. From the recreation area, Ben took Queen Zara to the workshop spaces where humans worked on various projects. They found a group of engineers collaborating on the design of a new type of atmospheric processor for colony worlds. Ben and Queen Zara watched as the engineers discussed different approaches to the technical challenges they faced. The conversation was lively and sometimes heated, with team members disagreeing about the best solutions. But rather than causing conflict, the disagreement seemed to lead to better ideas as different perspectives were considered. They are arguing, Queen Zara said, her surface showing colors that Ben recognized as confusion. They are debating, Ben corrected gently. Humans often disagree with each other, even when they are working toward the same goal. We believe that considering multiple viewpoints leads to better decisions. But how do they reach consensus if they disagree? Ben watched as one of the engineers sketched a new design on a digital board, incorporating ideas from several different team members. They find ways to combine the best elements from different proposals, or sometimes they test multiple approaches to see which one works better. Queen Zara observed the engineers for several more minutes. She seemed particularly interested in how they communicated with each other, using not just words but also gestures, facial expressions, and body language to convey meaning. Their communication is very complex, Queen Zara noted. They transmit information through multiple channels simultaneously. Human communication involves much more than just the words we speak, Ben agreed. We also communicate through tone of voice, facial expressions, and body posture. Sometimes the nonverbal communication is more important than the actual words. As they continued their tour, Ben showed Queen Zara other aspects of human life on the station. They visited the medical center, where human doctors worked to heal both humans and aliens who needed care. They saw the educational areas where human children learned about science, history, and culture. They observed the gardens where humans grew plants from Earth as a way of staying connected to their home world. Throughout their tour, Queen Zara asked many questions about human behavior and society. She was particularly interested in how humans formed relationships with each other and how they made decisions without the benefit of collective consciousness. Each human seems to have their own individual perspective, Queen Zara observed. How do you coordinate actions when everyone thinks differently? That is one of the challenges of human society, Ben admitted. We have developed systems of government, law, and social customs to help us work together despite our differences. But you are right that it can be complicated. They paused in a corridor where they could see humans going about their daily activities. A maintenance worker was repairing a wall panel while chatting with a passing scientist about the latest news from Earth. A group of teenagers was discussing their plans for the evening while walking to their next class. An elderly man was teaching a young woman how to play a traditional Earth musical instrument. I noticed that humans of different ages interact frequently, Queen Zara said. Among my people, those of different generations rarely communicate directly. Humans value the exchange of knowledge and experience between generations, Ben explained. Older humans teach younger ones, but young humans also bring new ideas and energy to their elders. We believe this interaction makes our society stronger. As the afternoon progressed, Ben could see that Queen Zara was processing a great deal of new information. The light patterns on her surface had become more complex and varied as she tried to understand the intricacies of human behavior. This has been very enlightening, Queen Zara said as they returned to the conference room where they had started. But I feel that I am only seeing a small part of the picture. The humans here on Harmony Point are in a formal diplomatic environment. They may be behaving differently than they would in their natural habitat. Ben nodded. That is a very perceptive observation, Your Majesty. Humans do tend to be more formal and careful when they are representing their species to aliens. Our behavior in our own communities is often more relaxed and spontaneous. Queen Zara's surface brightened with what Ben now recognized as excitement. Would it be possible for me to observe humans in their natural environment? To see how they live when they are not concerned about diplomatic protocols? Ben felt a moment of uncertainty. Taking an alien queen to visit a human colony world was far beyond his normal duties as a cultural attaché. It would require approval from multiple levels of government and careful security arrangements. But he could also see how important this was to Queen Zara. Her curiosity about human society seemed genuine, and her questions suggested that she was trying to understand humans in order to improve relations between their species. That would be a significant undertaking, Ben said carefully. It would require official approval and extensive planning. But if you are truly interested, I believe it could be arranged. I am very interested, Queen Zara said. I believe that understanding how humans truly live could benefit both our species. The Vithani have much to learn from human adaptability and creativity. Ben felt a surge of excitement at the possibility. If Queen Zara could truly understand human society, it might lead to much closer cooperation between humans and the Vithani Empire. The technological and scientific advances that could result from such cooperation would benefit everyone. I will contact my superiors and begin making arrangements, Ben said. It may take some time to organize everything properly. I am patient, Queen Zara replied. My people think in terms of centuries and millennia. I can wait a few weeks for the proper arrangements to be made. As Queen Zara prepared to leave, she turned back to Ben with one final question. In your opinion, cultural attaché Torres, what is the most important thing about human society that other species should understand? Ben thought carefully about his answer. I think the most important thing is that humans find strength in our diversity and our differences. We do not all think the same way or want the same things, but we have learned to work together despite those differences. Sometimes we even find that our differences make us stronger. Queen Zara's surface flickered with thoughtful colors. That is a concept my people find difficult to understand. We value unity and consensus above all else, but perhaps there is wisdom in the human approach that we have not yet recognized. After Queen Zara left, Ben sat in the conference room for a long time, thinking about their conversation. He realized that he had learned as much from the Queen's questions as she had learned from his answers. Seeing human society through alien eyes had given him a new perspective on his own species. Ben began making notes about what he would need to arrange for Queen Zara's visit to a human world. He would need to choose a colony that would give her a good representation of human society, without overwhelming her with too much complexity. He would need to coordinate with colonial authorities and security services. Most importantly, he would need to prepare the human colonists for the visit of an alien queen who wanted to understand how they really lived. As Ben worked on his plans, he felt a growing sense of excitement about the possibilities. If this visit went well, it could mark the beginning of a new era of cooperation between humans and the Vithani. And personally, Ben was looking forward to seeing his own species through the eyes of someone who had lived for over 2,000 years and ruled an interstellar empire. The next few weeks would be crucial in determining whether Queen Zara's question about how humans live would lead to greater understanding between their species, or whether the differences between human and Vithani society were simply too great to bridge. But Ben was optimistic. After all, humans had always been good at adapting to new situations and finding ways to work with others, even when those others were very different from themselves. If anyone could help an ancient alien queen understand the chaos and beauty of human life, it would be humanity itself. 3 weeks after Queen Zara's initial request, Ben Torres stood on the observation deck of the transport ship Harmony's Dream as it approached New Geneva, a thriving human colony world in the Centauri sector. The planet below looked beautiful from space with blue oceans, green continents, and swirling white clouds that reminded Ben of Earth. Queen Zara stood beside him, her crystalline form reflecting the light from New Geneva's sun in brilliant patterns. The light displays across her surface had been almost constant during their journey, indicating her excitement and anticipation about finally seeing how humans lived in their natural environment. The planet appears very similar to your homeworld, Queen Zara observed, her musical voice carrying notes of wonder. New Geneva was chosen specifically because it resembles Earth, Ben explained. Humans prefer worlds that feel familiar, though we have learned to adapt to many different environments. Dr. Maya Okafor joined them at the observation window, carrying a tablet with information about their planned itinerary. Maya had volunteered to accompany them on this historic visit, both to help with scientific observations and to provide additional perspective on human culture. The colonial government has been very cooperative, Maya reported. Governor Chen has arranged for us to visit several different communities, from the main city to rural farming areas to frontier settlements. We should get a comprehensive view of human colonial life. Ben felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness as their ship entered the planet's atmosphere. This visit could strengthen the relationship between humans and the Vithani Empire, but it could also go wrong if Queen Zara misunderstood what she observed. Human society could appear chaotic and disorganized to someone accustomed to the ordered perfection of Vithani civilization. Their first destination was New Geneva City, the planet's capital and largest settlement. As their shuttle descended toward the spaceport, Ben watched Queen Zara's reaction to her first close view of a human city. The city sprawled across a river valley, with buildings of various heights and styles mixed together in what might seem like random patterns. Streets curved and branched in organic shapes rather than following rigid geometric designs. Parks and green spaces were scattered throughout the urban area, and Ben could see the movement of vehicles and people even from their altitude. "It appears very disorganized," Queen Zara said, though her tone was curious rather than critical. "There seems to be no central planning or unified design. Human cities tend to grow organically over time," Ben explained. "People build where they need to be, and the city develops around their activities. It may look chaotic, but there is usually a logic to it based on human needs and preferences." After landing at the spaceport, they were met by Governor Chen, a middle-aged woman with graying hair and a warm smile. She had been briefed about Queen Zara's visit and seemed genuinely excited to show off her colony. "Your Majesty, welcome to New Geneva," Governor Chen said with a respectful bow. "We are honored to have you visit our world." Queen Zara's surface flickered with polite colors as she returned the greeting. "Thank you for allowing me to observe your society, Governor Chen. I am eager to learn how humans create such vibrant communities." Their first stop was the city center, where they walked through busy streets filled with people going about their daily activities. Queen Zara observed everything with intense curiosity, her crystalline form shifting colors as she processed the constant stream of new information. The streets were indeed busy and seemingly chaotic. People walked in all directions, some hurrying to appointments while others strolled leisurely. Street vendors sold food and goods from small carts, filling the air with delicious smells and cheerful calls to potential customers. Children ran between the adults playing games and laughing while their parents tried to keep track of them. "There are so many simultaneous activities," Queen Zara observed. "How do they avoid colliding with each other?" Ben watched the flow of pedestrian traffic and realized he had never really thought about it before. "Humans are very good at reading social cues and body language," he explained. "We can predict where other people are going and adjust our movements accordingly. It happens almost automatically." They paused at a busy intersection where dozens of people crossed the street in different directions. To Queen Zara, it must have looked like complete chaos, but somehow everyone managed to reach their destination without major collisions. "It is like a complex dance," Queen Zara said with wonder. "Each individual follows their own path, but they coordinate with others without any central control." "That is a good way to describe it," Maya agreed. "Human society often works through this kind of spontaneous coordination. We respond to each other's actions and find ways to coexist without formal rules for every situation." Their next stop was the central market, where vendors from across the colony sold everything from fresh produce to handmade crafts. Queen Zara was fascinated by the process of bargaining and negotiation that took place between buyers and sellers. They watched as a customer examined vegetables at one stall, discussing prices with the vendor, while also chatting about the weather and local news. The conversation seemed to serve multiple purposes simultaneously, conducting business, sharing information, and maintaining social connections. "The economic transaction is embedded within social interaction," Queen Zara observed. "They are not simply exchanging goods for currency. Humans are social creatures," Ben explained. "We prefer to do business with people we know and trust. Building relationships is often as important as the actual transaction." At another stall, they saw a vendor teaching a young customer how to select the best fruit, sharing knowledge that had nothing to do with making a sale. The vendor seemed genuinely interested in helping the customer learn, even though it took extra time and effort. Why does the vendor provide education without additional compensation? Queen Zara asked. Because helping others is considered valuable in itself, Maya replied. Humans often share knowledge and assistance freely, especially with younger members of the community. We believe this makes everyone better off in the long run. From the market, they visited a local school where human children were learning about science, history, and culture. Queen Zara was particularly interested in observing the educational process, since Vithani knowledge was shared through direct consciousness transfer rather than gradual learning. In one classroom, they watched a teacher leading a discussion about the history of human space exploration. The children asked many questions and offered their own ideas about why humans had chosen to explore the galaxy. The teacher encouraged their curiosity and helped them think through complex concepts. The young humans seemed to question everything, Queen Zara noted. They do not simply accept information from their elders. Critical thinking is an important part of human education, Ben explained. We want children to learn how to analyze information and form their own opinions, not just memorize facts. In another classroom, children were working on a group project about different alien species. They had divided into teams and were researching various civilizations, including the Vithani Empire. Queen Zara was delighted to see how the children portrayed her people, though some of their assumptions were amusingly incorrect. They seemed to enjoy learning, Queen Zara observed. Education appears to be a social activity rather than a solitary one. Humans learn better when they can interact with others, Maya explained. We share ideas, ask questions, and build on each other's knowledge. Even our mistakes become learning opportunities when we discuss them with others. After leaving the school, they visited a local hospital where human doctors and nurses cared for patients. Queen Zara was moved by the compassion and dedication she observed, as medical staff worked long hours to help people recover from illness and injury. In one room, they saw a doctor explaining a treatment plan to an elderly patient and his worried family. The doctor took time to answer all their questions and address their concerns, even though he clearly had many other patients waiting. The healer provides emotional support as well as medical treatment, Queen Zara observed. This seems inefficient from a purely medical perspective. Humans believe that emotional well-being affects physical health, Ben explained. A patient who feels cared for and understood often recovers faster than one who receives only technical medical treatment. They watched as nurses worked with patients, not just administering medications but also talking with them, listening to their concerns and providing comfort during difficult times. The human approach to medicine clearly involved treating the whole person, not just their physical symptoms. That evening, Governor Chen invited them to her home for dinner, saying that Queen Zara could not truly understand human life without experiencing a family meal. The governor's house was modest but comfortable, filled with personal belongings that reflected her family's history and interests. Governor Chen's family included her husband, 2 teenage children, and her elderly mother who lived with them. Queen Zara was introduced to each family member and invited to observe their evening routine. The dinner preparation was a collaborative effort, with different family members contributing to cooking, setting the table, and organizing the meal. Conversations flowed freely as they worked, covering topics from school activities to work challenges to plans for the weekend. Each individual has different responsibilities, but they coordinate their efforts, Queen Zara observed. How do they decide who does what? Human families develop their own systems over time, Governor Chen explained. We consider each person's abilities, preferences, and schedules. Sometimes we negotiate, sometimes we just do what needs to be done. During dinner, Queen Zara experienced the full complexity of human family interaction. Multiple conversations happened simultaneously, with family members switching between topics and including different people in different discussions. They shared food, told stories, teased each other affectionately, and made plans for future activities. The governor's teenage daughter was excited to meet an alien queen and asked many questions about Vithani society. Her son was more interested in the technical aspects of Queen Zara's crystalline structure and how she generated light patterns. The grandmother shared stories about the early days of the colony and how the community had grown over the years. Your family members have very different personalities and interests, Queen Zara observed. Yet you function as a cohesive unit. That is one of the strengths of human families, Governor Chen replied. We bring different perspectives and abilities together. Our differences make us stronger, not weaker. After dinner, the family gathered in the living room for what they called family time. The teenagers worked on homework while asking their parents for help with difficult problems. The grandmother taught Queen Zara a traditional earth card game, patiently explaining the rules and strategy. Governor Chen and her husband discussed plans for war, improving the colony's infrastructure, while also helping with homework and participating in the card game. They are multitasking again, Queen Zara said to Ben. Humans seem capable of maintaining awareness of multiple activities simultaneously. It is how we manage our complex social lives, Ben replied. We have learned to divide our attention between different people and activities while still maintaining meaningful connections with each. The next day, they visited rural areas outside the city where human farmers grew food and raised animals. Queen Zara was fascinated by the relationship between humans and the natural environment of their adopted world. At one farm, they met a family that had been working the land for 2 generations. The farmer showed them how they had adapted earth crops to grow in New Geneva's soil and climate, while also learning to cultivate native plants that provided nutrition and medicine. We work with the land, not against it, the farmer explained. It took years to understand how to grow food here, but now we can feed ourselves and have surplus to sell in the city. Queen Zara observed how the farming family worked together, with each member contributing according to their age and abilities. Children helped with simple tasks while learning more complex skills from their parents. Elderly grandparents shared knowledge about weather patterns and crop rotation, while also caring for the youngest children. The knowledge passes from generation to generation, Queen Zara noted. But each generation also adds new understanding. That is how human knowledge grows, Maya explained. We build on what previous generations learned, but we also adapt and innovate based on new circumstances. They visited several other farms and rural communities, each with its own character and specialties. Some focused on agriculture, others on mining or manufacturing. Some were established settlements with permanent buildings, while others were frontier communities where people lived in temporary structures while exploring new areas. In one frontier settlement, they met a group of explorers who were mapping the planet's northern continent. These humans lived in basic shelters and faced daily challenges from weather, wildlife, and difficult terrain. Yet they seemed energetic and optimistic about their work. Why do they choose such difficult lives? Queen Zara asked. They could live comfortably in the established cities. Some humans are driven to explore and discover new things, Ben explained. They find meaning and satisfaction in pushing boundaries and expanding human knowledge, even when it involves hardship. Queen Zara spent time talking with the explorers, learning about their motivations and goals. She was particularly interested in how they made decisions as a team, since they had to respond quickly to changing conditions without the benefit of long deliberation. We trust each other, one explorer explained. When someone sees danger or opportunity, we act on their judgment. We have learned to work together so well that we can coordinate without lengthy discussions. But what if someone makes a mistake? Queen Zara asked. Then we adapt and try something different, another explorer replied. Mistakes are part of learning. We would rather act quickly and occasionally be wrong than miss opportunities by being too cautious. On their final day on New Geneva, Ben arranged for Queen Zara to observe a town hall meeting in one of the smaller communities. The citizens were debating whether to build a new school or expand the existing medical clinic. Since they only had resources for one project, Queen Zara watched in amazement as dozens of humans expressed different opinions about the decision. Some argued passionately for the school, citing the needs of growing families. Others advocated for the medical clinic, emphasizing the importance of healthcare for an aging population. The debate was lively and sometimes heated, but it remained respectful. They disagree strongly, yet they do not seem to consider each other enemies, Queen Zara observed. Humans can disagree about specific issues while still respecting each other as people, Ben explained. We understand that different people have different priorities and perspectives. The meeting continued for several hours, with citizens presenting facts, sharing personal stories, and proposing compromises. Gradually, a consensus began to emerge around a creative solution. They would expand the medical clinic first, but design it with space that could later be converted to classrooms if needed. They found a solution that neither side had originally proposed, Queen Zara said with wonder. The final decision incorporated elements from multiple perspectives. That is how human democracy often works, Maya explained. We start with different positions, but through discussion and negotiation, we often find solutions that are better than any single person's original idea. As their visit to New Geneva came to an end, Queen Zara asked to spend some time alone to process everything she had observed. Ben and Maya gave her space while she stood in the governor's garden, her crystalline form cycling through complex patterns of light as she contemplated what she had learned. When Queen Zara was ready to talk, she called Ben and Maya to join her. Her surface was glowing with colors that Ben had learned to recognize as excitement and understanding. I believe I am beginning to understand how humans live, Queen Zara said. Your species has found strength in what my people would consider weaknesses. What do you mean? Ben asked. Your short lives create urgency that drives creativity and passion, Queen Zara explained. Your individual perspectives lead to diversity of thought that generates innovation. Your emotional connections create bonds that motivate great efforts and sacrifices. Maya nodded encouragingly. Those are all important aspects of human society. But most importantly, Queen Zara continued, you have learned to find harmony without uniformity. You work together despite your differences, and those differences actually make you stronger. Ben felt a surge of pride in his species, seeing humanity through Queen Zara's ancient and wise perspective. We are not perfect, he said. We make mistakes and sometimes we conflict with each other, but we keep trying to do better. That is another strength, Queen Zara said. You are always growing and changing. My people value stability and permanence, but perhaps there is wisdom in your approach of constant adaptation and improvement. On the journey back to Harmony Point, Queen Zara spent long hours discussing what she had learned with Ben and Maya. She was particularly interested in how human society balanced individual freedom with collective responsibility. Each human makes their own choices, yet somehow you coordinate your actions for the benefit of all, Queen Zara mused. It seems impossible, yet I have seen it work. It is not always easy, Ben admitted. Sometimes individual desires conflict with community needs, but we have developed systems of law, government, and social customs that help us balance these competing interests. And when those systems fail, Queen Zara asked, then we adapt and try new approaches, Maya replied. Human society is constantly evolving as we learn from our mistakes and respond to new challenges. As they approached Harmony Point, Queen Zara made an announcement that surprised both Ben and Maya. I would like to propose a new form of cooperation between our species, she said. The Vithani have much to learn from human adaptability and innovation. In return, we could share our knowledge of long-term planning and stability. Thanks for watching.